No, I just want to know which one mine is.
You guys are good. You're live.
David Goss and Christian Dyer here at Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey for this USL broadcast of the New York Red Bulls 2 against the 2015 USL champions, Rochester Rhinos. Christian, the New York Red Bulls 2 coming off a great run, 2 straight wins to come into this one. They face off against a Rhinos team that is as established a club as there is really in the United States. Last year's regular season and USL champions, and this is going to be a whole different test for this Red Bull 2 squad.
Yeah, and it's going to be a squad, certainly when you're looking at the fact that Tyler Adams getting his first MLS start midweek for the senior team, Sean Davis, who would probably have the opportunity to play in a game like this, Alex Mule getting his first MLS start on Saturday. All of a sudden, you're taking out a few key pieces of this New York Red Bulls 2 squad going up against a team that last year won the USL championship, has been the standard bearer of this league in many different formations over the past 10 to 15 years. So it's going to be a real test for New York Red Bull 2. And I think this is going to be an opportunity to see what Rochester is made of in terms of their identity. We know about their defending, their core 4 in the back, the block of 4 in the midfield that they really get behind the ball well. But are they going to be able to, against a team that put up 4 goals a week ago, be able to come out on the road and put together a performance where they can challenge the hottest team in the USL right now?
We know New York wants to get out to a fast start, a goal 15 seconds into the last matchup as they basically steamrolled Bethlehem Steel FC here at home. 2 teams, of course, a lot of names to look at. Who are the 2 stars, one on either side, that you're looking at coming into this one, Christian?
Well, I mean, certainly when you're looking at Red Bull, I think it's going to be the guy in the middle who's going to have to control some things. That's going to be Devin Speedy Williams. Good two-way player, reminds me of a box-to-box type of guy. His ability to sit there, clog up things, the passing channels in particular, he's very disruptive in that sort of role. And then I think Christian Walensky on the Rochester Rhinos side, a lot of pace that he brings. He can stretch the field. He can kind of toe that sideline a little bit. Will get caught off sides once in a while. He's a little too fast for his own good mentally and physically. But he's someone who is, if he's actively involved in the game, getting significant touches in the final third, can make a back line for New York that's always seems to be in flux with all these new names coming in, coming out. Could make for a very long day for New York.
Valesky, 8 goals last season, and the other man who tied him for most goals on the team, Steven Dos Santos, returns for this game, his first of the year after receiving a red card in the semifinals or in the Eastern Conference Championship last year, so a big offensive boost for this Rochester team. They went down to Richmond in their last game, and they fell 1-0 in this one. Bob Lilly making a coaching change coming into this, not a coaching change, he is the coach, making a goalkeeping change. But before we talk about that, Bob Lilly, one of the names in U.S. soccer. He's been around for a very long time. You mentioned a little bit about the banks of defensive teams. What do you expect from this Rochester team, and what do you expect from a Bob Lilly team?
Well, this is a Rochester team that's resilient. It's a team, certainly, when you look at their identity, it's about defense first and foremost. They get so many players behind the ball. They are a tenacious group. They work very well. They communicate very well. The offside line that they hold is always very tight. They're compact defensively in terms of shape as well. And when you talk about Bob Lilly teams, they're fit, they're hardworking, they leave everything out there on the field. 1 loss last year, 1 loss. They already have 1 this year. That's not going to sit well with Rochester.
68 degrees, sunny, not a single cloud in the sky or a breeze. What a perfect afternoon it is for soccer.
Just
here
like Colorado
at Red Bull
last
Arena.
night for the
Absolutely,
MLS match.
the exact same way. Spring is here, well, if it's not in Colorado, and these 2 teams are out and they are ready to go. We are going to go down to the field for national anthems, and we'll be back here with first half action and lineups here on NewYorkRedBulls.com. We are back and ready to go. These two teams shake hands and get prepared. And as we said, for Bob Lilly bringing his squad into here, making a couple changes to the starting lineup. The biggest one probably being Thomas Gomez getting his first career Rhino start. In goal in front of him, that big and physical backline, Joe Farrell and Vasilis Apostolopoulos, both standing at 6'2". Mike Garzi, number 13, the captain in central midfield, alongside Sean Tosh, Canardo Forbes on one wing, Marcos Ugarte on the other, and up top, the two big goal scorers, Christian Valesky and Steven Dos Santos, finally returning. One note on the bench, Michael Gamble, New England Revolution draft pick. He's on his first loan here with the Rochester Rhinos.
And Gomez, certainly the big story there as well, unseating a goalkeeper in Adam Grinwis, who was 3-0-3 last year. That's not too bad. So let's see what the communication is like there in the back line.
For New York, Ryan Mira returning once again will wear the captain's armband here. Noah Powder, who was just called up, is leaving in 2 days for the Trinidad and Tobago youth national team, gets another start at left back. Aaron Long, Tim Schmoll, and Conrad play for the rest of that back line. Dan Metzger and Speedy Williams will be in the holding midfield, and in front of them, the big four attackers on this team. Derek Etienne got his first goal last week. Junior Flemings gets his second start of the year, and then Brandon Allen and Stefano Bonomo, a little bit of a tactical change. Those two going up top. Kevin O'Toole and Jared Gilby, two academy players, getting their first USL bench appearance to start out for this game.
And Bonomo, it's a good sign for Red Bulls too, had a little bit of a hip issue for a couple weeks, keeping him out. Was training with the first team on Monday, looking fit, looking active. His movement off the ball has been very impressive. And for a guy as big and as physical as he is, his ability on the ball one-on-one, the daring runs that he makes, his willingness to take players on 1v1, he's definitely a name to watch for fans this game. Someone who may be able to take that step up to the senior team sooner rather than later.
And for Bonomo, a little bit of a different look this year because he has another forward to play with alongside Brandon Allen. Last year, him and Chris Sonis splitting time a little bit more, never really playing with two true strikers outside of a few minutes with Anatola Bong playing with this Red Bull 2 squad. So we are ready to go here as Jaime Herrera, our head referee, with the whistle, his assistants, Henrik Carlson, Tyler Rostek, and our fourth official, Carlos Gonzalez Escobar. David Goss and Christian Dyer here on NewYorkRedBulls.com for the third home game of the season for this New York Red Bull 2 team as they get kicked off, sitting on 7 points. With a win here, they would take over first place once again in the Eastern Conference. Etienne starting out on this left wing, and Christian, when we talk about this team with people, when people ask us questions about this team, whenever you talk about coming to a game, Derek Etienne's the first name that's mentioned. He had a good start last year, went away to college, come back, maybe the first game still getting settled in, but then last game he just came out and dominated from the first to the last minute.
Offensively, certainly showing a lot of promise, even early on last year when he was starting to make this acclimation before going off to the University of Virginia, where he settled in very well as a freshman. But I think defensively, you're seeing the work rate. You're seeing that he's willing to settle back in and do some of the hard running that is necessary when the ball gets given up in the midfield. It's not just about the offense in terms of his development. It's really the full component, the full aspect of his game, being willing to put it in the kind of work defensively that's necessary to make things successful.
Rochester started out the season last year here at Red Bull Arena, their lone trip down the two interstate rivals. They tied that one 0-0 up in Rochester for their home opener a few weeks later. They knocked off New York Red Bulls 2-0 in that game. The last game of the regular season, they beat New York Red Bull 2 3-2 in incredible fashion with 2 goals in stoppage time before beating New York Red Bull 2 for a 4th time in the Eastern Conference semifinals. 2-0 in that game. Conrad Plaver, you see on your far side at right back, picking up a first half red card in that game to really shift the advantage to Rochester.
And that was a little bit of a controversial red card too. Early on in the match, 22nd minute, and still being talked about. And I spoke with John Wallenick before the match. I said, do you bring up the playoff losses to Rochester with your guys? He said, we have enough turnover now. We need to be focused on just the fact that this Rochester team is a good Rochester team. If we don't show up, it's going to be a tough afternoon.
Canardo Forbes with that shot there, playing out on the right wing. Rochester in a 4-5-1 last game, coming out in a 4-4-2 now with the return of Dos Santos. Is that, I guess you can call it the first attempt on goal of the game?
It was a hopeful cross, I think.
A very liberal use of the term shot. This one gets bang long. You see the shade growing on this field. A perfect 4 p.m. Eastern time kickoff here between these two teams. Metzger gets it to the feet of Williams. The through ball towards Allen. It's behind him. And this New York Red Bull 2 team, similar to the first team, they've looked to high press when they can. But Rochester's not a team that really likes to have a ton of time on the ball. So how do you expect that matchup to play itself out?
Well, it's going to be a real challenge for Red Bull's 2 backline. They're going to have to be aware of the long ball, of quick changes, of shifting. When the ball goes to one side, they need to make sure that the players are sliding over correctly in terms of covering. And when you're a press team, if you get beaten over the top, it's not the ball necessarily over the back four. It's oftentimes the ball before the back four. Center backs have to commit and step up, and then a runner can come through and a diagonal ball can expose it. Saw it last year with the Red Bull senior team against Orlando here at Red Bull Arena, where consistently Orlando was able to do that, make the center backs commit, pull up, space behind, led to counterattacks.
Ryan Mira, you expect to have a busier afternoon than he had last week against Steel FC. He made a penalty kick save.
But almost anything outside of that would have been a busier afternoon for Ryan Mira.
This is a team with so much size, multiple players in the starting lineup at 6'2". New York has Tim Schmuel in the starting lineup today, standing at 6'6" at center back. Conrad Pleva brings some height, but this is a New York team that's going to struggle. You have to think with a lot of set pieces and crosses coming in from this Rochester team.
And I think Stefano Bonomo as well, who's pretty solid in the air, and Brandon Allen, who may not be as big, and a very nice step up there by Schmuel to read and intercept, and then a tidy distribution to start the counterattack.
Williams gets it to the feet of Powder. Powder, the Red Bull Academy player here on loan. 4th straight start to begin this season for a 17-year-old. Noah Powder has stepped in and not looked out of place at all over these first 4 games.
So confident pushing forward, and that's one thing Rochester is going to have to keep an eye on their with their right back in terms of Powder liking to move forward fast. He's a little bit shifty. He's good at finding space, and Red Bull 2 is able to switch the field so effectively. We saw it in particular last week against Bethlehem Steel. It's just going to be something that this backline is going to have to be aware of. It's not the fastest backline for Rochester. They're physical, they're strong, they read the game so well, but a little bit of speed and switching the ball can really change the dynamic in terms of how they have to team defend in those 2 blocks of 4.
Pleva looking into the feet of Junior Flemings before it's turned over, and Rochester will look to go the other way. Rochester, a team, like you said, that likes to play, keep the game in front of them as a back line, and this is a New York team with a lot of speed in those attacking options, and this guy on the ball right here, Speedy Williams, with the ability to hit a ball over the top. Floats one into the feet of Pleva. Mike Garzi able to get over it and win it back. Garzi wearing the captain's armband once again. Tony Walls starting the year with an injury. Will be the captain when he does return. Mike Garzi taking over that spot until then. Not too far from home at a New Milford, Connecticut, Colgate University player. Dos Santos gets the touch. New York's able to turn them over. And Fleming's going long immediately. Junior Fleming's not a player that a lot of people knew much about. Came in, a goal and an assist in the first game. If you knew intrepid reporters who really look into things, Christian, knew a thing or two about him, you might be one of those guys. USL Team of the Week, though, in his first performance and an assist off the bench last game.
Yeah, Junior Fleming is someone who kind of fits into that mold of a classic Jamaican attacker, brings good speed. He will be daring on the ball, likes to take his opportunities in the final third, but certainly when you look at where he's come up from his development, Jamaican under-17 national team, captain of that national team, now being integrated into the under-20s. He's a good, solid player. He brings a good work rate, which I think for someone his age, he puts in certainly an honest day's shift in training. But Junior Flemings is going to be a very interesting name. represented by Damani Rolfe, the former Chicago Fire, and one-time on trial with the New York Red Bulls forward. Brought a lot of heartache to this franchise with that U.S. Open Cup in 2003, scoring the lone goal at Giant Stadium. But Damani Rolfe, more than making up for it over the past year, represents Kamar Lawrence, Dane Richards, who was with the team last year for about a good half of the season, and now Junior Flemings and certainly Devin Speedy Williams being big parts of the Red Bull 2 future.
Derek Etienne standing over this one. The right-footed service looks like coming in. Thomas Gomez hasn't had much to do so far. Etienne floats it to the far post towards Shmuel. He's able to head it down before it's cleared up. Still in the box for Rochester. Cleared back to the middle of the field mistakenly. A little bit of a mess right now. And then finally Joe Becker able to clear it out of bounds. A little bit of chaos there for Rochester though in their own 18. New York in 3 of their 4 matchups against Rochester shut out last year. And this year, they've scored 8 goals in just 3 games. Coming into this one, incredibly, as Mira's off his line and clears it. 225 minutes of shutout soccer for New York Red Bulls 2 since the first half of the first game against TFC 2. They haven't conceded a goal.
Oh, it's a team that, despite the fact that they've had a different back four now for what's going to be a fourth match, I think there's an understanding of communication, how they want to be compact, but a lot of this comes from the midfield too. Last week, Devin Speedy Williams doing well, Tyler Adams combining well in the middle of the field. It's really about team defense, and that high pressing style makes things easy for a back four. If the back four communicates well and reads things well, then it could be a very easy afternoon for Ryan Mira. But if there's miscommunication, if they're caught ball watching, then certainly things could be a lot dicier.
We don't know. It may not be for Ryan Mira, as he is down with an injury right now after coming off his line to clear that ball. Mira came into the league out of Fordham, as Rafael Diaz is warming up, the backup goalkeeper out of Fordham. First year, there's an injury, he goes in, and he was really incredible in his rookie year. Then he gets hurt, and he hasn't been able to find first-team time until this season now with Red Bull 2. And he's looked very strong since he's come.
Yeah, Ryan Mira is a tremendous shot stopper. He certainly has the prototypical size you want to see from a goalkeeper. Comes off of his line well, communicates well, reads the game very well, gets every cross that comes his direction. But for Ryan Mira, it's always been about injuries. And last year, being on loan with City FC, comes in for one match, has a good game but makes one mistake and then is never heard from necessarily again. So it's been frustrating for Mira, who's just a couple years removed. The Irish under-21 national team was looking at him, wanted to call him in. Red Bull at the time blocked it because they thought he was a little too young in his career to be going and playing for the under-21s for Ireland. But he's someone, if he gets good, consistent matches, I could very easily see an MLS team perhaps being interested. He's just 25 years old. He's the right type of pro. So, I think these matches are very important for him. And it looks like Ryan Mira just took off the captain's armband, and Rafi Diaz from Rockaway, New Jersey, Mars Hills High School, will be coming in.
So the first substitution of the game, you talked about injuries with Mira, and unfortunately, the Larry Bird doppelganger, it looks like his afternoon will be done as Mira throws the captain's armband over to Aaron Long and Rafi Diaz, who had 6 appearances last year, 4 starts out of St. John's University, one of the all-time leading players in performances, appearances, and saves in St. John's history. And he will come back on, as this is the play that led to the Mira injury, and you see him hold up there, no contact, but he knew almost immediately. Rafi Diaz making his first appearance of the 2016 season. Played in USL with Orlando City before they joined MLS, after he got out of school, and then returning to his home state last year. One of the first signings, really, with this New York Red Bull 2 team.
And Rafi Diaz is someone who's been training with the senior team for well over a year now. I've had the opportunity to watch him in training. He has the build, the size that you want from someone who's just, barely out of high school. Certainly doesn't look it. But for a franchise that has a great track record of developing goalkeepers, with the likes of a Tim Howard, Johnny Walker, Tony Miola, now Luis Robles most recently. I think Diaz is in a good position. It was really Diaz's development that led to the Red Bulls being able to make some decisions and choices with their roster, with other goalkeepers that they had in camp, other goalkeepers who were on the USL roster. They looked at Diaz and saw really his upward trajectory. He's really a student of the game. He's a humble kid. He's down to earth. But I think when you look at the physical tools that he brings, exactly where you want a young goalkeeper to be.
And this will be a test for Diaz. Don't forget to keep up to date with the USL all season long by visiting the new USLsoccer.com for everything you need to know about USL and its 29 teams. United Soccer League expanding. An incredible showing these last 2 weeks in Cincinnati.
21,000
fans falling 3-2 to Louisville City in the first of those river derbies. As Shmuel now in a foot race and able to get it away from Dos Santos.
And very good use of his body there by Shmuel to be able to read and be able to get between himself and the goal and muscle off the forward, off the ball.
Shmuel out of Harvard University. His first year with the New York Red Bulls too. Though he spent time with the PDL squad. Nomo drops deep to pick it up. Allen's touch just a little bit too long.
And good tracking back there from Garzi. He's someone who's going to log a lot of miles in this game. Does a lot of tireless sort of running. Maybe it's not necessarily appreciated by fans all over the place, but being able to run back and being able to get in those passing channels to disrupt things, very valuable for this Rochester team.
Long ball over the top.
Somehow I'm not sure that's the recipe for success against this Rochester team.
Playing right into their hands. Farrell and Apostolopoulos on that back line. This one goes out in favor of New York. Now Rafael Diaz, you mentioned his shot-stopping ability, his athleticism, his skill. Doesn't have the natural size of a Ryan Mira who comes in at 6'4". We mentioned the height of Rochester, so we'll have to watch out for that as this game plays out. Ball played through for Allen. And he was calling for a corner kick the moment it was played, and I believe he got it right. So it'll be a corner kick here for New York. They've already had one set piece so far in this game. Be dangerous, still looking for their first good goal-scoring opportunity for both sides. New York Red Bulls, too, coming in off 4-goal performance against Bethlehem Steel FC and trying to get the opener against this Rhinos squad. Etienne with the service, put into the box. It's knocked down, a chance to shoot now on the top of the box, and it's deflected immediately off the foot of off the foot of Metzger, and it goes out of bounds. Dan Metzger coming off ACL surgery during the middle of last season and getting an opportunity to start now in this season. If you want to follow the USL, become a fan on Facebook for exclusive league news and interactive content. That's USL on Facebook.
Do you like the USL on the Facebook?
I absolutely do. Because I'm young and hip like that. So the corner kick taken short. Noah Powder with the left-footed cross doesn't get it off the ground. New York maintains possession. Etienne able to come away with it. Beats the first man, tries to do it a second time before losing possession.
But Etienne, in a scenario like that last year, probably would have given up and then not pursued the ball. And I think this is part of his development, is his willingness to go after loose balls, those secondary balls, and be able to make a challenge on them. He's very talented in the final third, but now being able to develop more in terms of the pressing style, in terms of his defensive work rate, is certainly going to round out his ability.
Only 14 professional soccer appearances coming in to this season for him. Played down at the University of Virginia last fall. Got 10 starts there, including a highlight reel goal against VCU to start his career. But almost touch just a bit too long and it runs out of bounds. about 15 minutes into this one so far. Christian, what have you seen from these two teams?
I think they're two teams who are really looking to settle down into this match. It seems to be sort of a little bit of a chippy sort of game, no real flow to it. I think Red Bull's being overly direct. Perhaps it's not having a Tyler Adams there, the usual face in the center of the midfield, who I know fans want to see more from him, but his job is to calm things down, settle, maintain possession, provide support, and maintain the ball flowing. Red Bulls looked at their best so far in this match when they've been moving the ball quickly, as they did in the final third a couple minutes ago with Etienne. And for me, Rochester right now just looks more than comfortable to settle back, play long balls, pump it, try to find something. They're lacking a little bit of creativity and imagination, any real sort of dynamic flow, in particular in the final third, if they're even getting there. You got a young goalkeeper in Rafi Diaz in goal for Red Bulls too. I think now's the time for Rochester to settle things down. They begin to pepper him and see what he's all about.
And it seems like Rochester happy to take the risk that if they put enough dangerous balls up there, that Valesky chases on, one will fall for him, as it looks like it might here. Can't get it out of his feet, but goes down and earns a dangerous free kick here, right on top of the 18. Our head official, Jaime Herrera, standing over that one. So this might be Rafi Diaz's first bit of work of the afternoon.
The first bit's going to be getting that wall in line, getting at least 4 bodies in there.
Looks like Conardo Forbes standing over this one for Rochester. Played in more of an attacking midfield role last week down in Richmond, but with the return of the 4-4-2 and Dos Santos going out wide in this one. Forbes 3 goals, 5 assists last season.
Very technical player, has some good, perhaps not necessarily appreciated speed. Very good one-on-one when you look at him, and his ability to also float out wide from time to time.
So Forbes will take, you see Ugarte wide open on that far side. Forbes with the shot, and he puts it over the top of the crossbar. Rochester maybe a little bit upset with what they got out of that one. It looked like a dangerous opportunity, but not much production on the free kick.
Just going back to Forbes for a moment, he's a player who, when I spoke with John Wolyniec, the New York Red Bulls 2 coach before the match, he said he's someone we have to be very much aware of. He floats in and out of the games, can kind of hide and settle in for a few minutes and then pop up in a dangerous spot all of a sudden. His willingness, his technical ability with the ball at his feet is something that's very unique in the USL, just in terms of his just overall willingness to go 1v1 and win the fair share of those battles.
John Wolyniec, a guy who played for Rochester.
Sure
2001,
did.
The Rochester Raging Rhinos.
After a stint with what MLS team?
Hey, when you do this to me, give me a second. I have to call the game, but I'm going to think about it while I do that.
Your head's on fire right now.
Yeah. Rochester charging down the left side. They whip in the cross. Rochester, the last non-Major League Soccer team to win a U.S. Open Cup.
1999. There we go.
A great year for them, a great competition for them.
Was a very good year.
They will pick up U.S. Open Cup play in just a few weeks as well, getting their draw. Facing off, I believe, against the winner of Southie FC versus Seacoast United Phantoms. That one was pulled out of the hat. They lost last year in penalty kicks to the Philadelphia Union and a certain John McCarthy, who's a former Rochester Rhinos goalkeeper. This one goes long, knocked down for Allen. And then Allen has it knocked away to the hands of Gomez. You can follow at USL on Twitter to keep up with all of the live action during the 2016 USL season. That's at USL on Twitter for all your score updates, matchup previews, signings, news and notes, and the lot. 29 teams is a lot to follow, Christian. 6
expansion teams this year, too, so they certainly have their work cut out for them. And thank goodness the USL is on Instagram, on the Facebook, on Twitter. If Al Gore didn't invent the internet, we wouldn't be able to keep up with it all.
Soccer wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for that good man. Already Reno in line to come into the league next year. Sacramento making some noise over this last week about a potential move to Major League Soccer as well. Splava cuts that one out and then puts it up the line and out of bounds, but a lot of exciting news coming out around the league. San Antonio FC getting themselves a result in LA after their big 8,000 person home debut. St. Louis with their first home game this weekend, over 5,000 out there as they drew with Tulsa 0-0.
That was a big match for 12-man FC.
You sure you don't want to call it the 1950 World Cup squad? St. Louis, one of the, what do you call it, the soccer spirits of U.S.? I don't know what we call that city, but a city that loves the game and has a team now they can come out and support. St. Louis moving into the Western Conference, so we will not see them here in New York this year, as you only play against your conference opponents. The top 8 teams then moving in to the postseason. This ball comes over the top towards Bonomo. He gets knocked down and it rolls out of bounds for a goal kick. Rochester Rhinos head home next week, and they will host FC Montreal. Brand new turf up there at Salin Stadium, forcing them, as they usually have to start with a long road trip, and then they move into a 4-game homestand.
And Bonomo there, that was very good defensive work by number 21, Dominic Samuel, just being able to, again, much like we saw Tim Schmoll a few minutes ago, getting his body between himself and the ball, letting it go out. But that's what Bonomo will do. Bonomo's going to get themselves in position, kind of sit in those areas, and just wait and be opportunistic.
Bonomo gets taken down, and another free kick going here for Red Bull 2. Dominic Samuel with his first year in Rochester out of Southern New Hampshire University, a Toronto native. Rochester, a lot of familiar faces from their championship team, a lot of big moves as well, especially Brandon Miller, goalkeeper of the year, 13 shutouts last year. He's out in LA with the Orange County Blues. He's been replaced in a battle now between Gomez and Grinwis. Grant Van de Castile, the big center back, as well, another piece from that championship team that's moved on. The throw in falls and now is cleared.
And for about 25 minutes now, I think Apostolopoulos has been doing a very good job against Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen's coming in, has been so effective now through 3 USL matches, but really hasn't gotten a sniff of the ball in the final third. You see Apostolopoulos is really shadowing him, using that big body physically, but when the ball gets at his feet, is distributing it quickly out of the heart of that Rhinos backline before the Red Bulls press can get started.
Apostolopoulos, Greek Youth International in his second year, as our head official Jaime Herrera slipped there and has a smile on his face. He's enjoying it so far. So Apostolopoulos now a full-time starter for this team, settling in a huge season last year, 27 appearances. This cross comes in, Dos Santos with the back heel, and Rafi Diaz makes his first save of the game.
Very cheeky there from Dos Santos. The ball coming down from the left flank, getting in behind. We talked about it with the pressing style, getting in behind the Red Bulls back line, coming in between Schmoll and I'm not sure if that's Dan Metzger there, but Dos Santos, with just a little bit of trickery, almost worked out well. Nice job, though, by Rafi Diaz not to be fooled, holding his ground and then quickly reacting.
Bad turnover here by New York in their own half as Rochester looks to jump on them. First big goal-scoring look of the game for either team there from Dos Santos. Brings a little bit of energy to the game and also shows you why they missed this player in Dos Santos so much in these last 2 games, as well as last year in the USL Championship game, which he was suspended for as well.
Yeah, finished with 8 goals, and we see the reason why. He's willing to be daring in the final third, take the opportunities that are presented to him. I mean, he's a player certainly with a very bright future, and you look at his production, wouldn't surprise me to see some bigger teams start sniffing around.
A throw in there. Brandon Allen finally gets a touch or two. What I love about Dos Santos, you see, he hasn't really touched the ball, gets that shot on goal, 8 goals, 0 assists. He knows exactly what he wants to do on the field. He takes care of business inside the 18, and he leaves the rest of it to his teammates. Santos out of Cape Verde, playing now in his 2nd season in USL. Speedy Williams cuts back and floats this one to the far side. all-Caribbean connection there. Speedy Williams to Noah Powder to Derek Etienne, Haitian youth U23 international.
And Derek Etienne's father has a lot of ties with professional soccer in this area as well.
Sean Tosh looking up the field. Putting out in front of Valesky. Valesky drafted by the Portland Timbers. Chose to come and play for Rochester last year instead. Get himself some first team minutes. Had a great season on that run to the championship. 2 goals on the year against New York Red Bulls too. So whatever it is that he does against this team clearly works.
Well, a lot of speed, but also a lot of technical ability. And I think he makes very intelligent runs when you watch him week in, week out with the USL. This isn't a guy who's just wasting his time, but really picking his opportunities to go wide, make the runs centrally, and in particular dissecting center backs with those runs.
Sprayed out wide right. Samuel looking to get forward for the first time, and it's turned over. Powder puts it behind Allen's feet. New York started out slow, we said, at home against TFC2 in the opening game, went down 2-0 at halftime before pulling themselves back for a 2-2 draw in that one. Pleva defending in the corner. Is able to get it away from Becker. Then it's knocked down. Nike's a proud partner of the USL. Follow at Nike Soccer on Twitter for all of the latest Nike Soccer information. Or you can go to nike.com/soccer for this one. These Rochester Rhino yellow jerseys, by the way, Christian, they're a tasty piece of uniform.
Do we have a closet Norwich fan here?
I don't know. I just like yellow and green. I think they're good colors.
The old Cosmos colors.
Absolutely. Legendary team formerly playing in New Jersey. Is this the New York Red Bulls too? One of 2 professional teams currently playing in New Jersey. The other one being the New York Red Bulls. Fell last night out in Colorado, but Alex Mule, who had his first career professional goal last week for this New York Red Bull 2 squad, getting the start in that one, in a lot of people's estimation, Christian, one of the star performers of the game.
Yeah, you look at Wednesday night, Tyler Adams getting his first start, Sean Davis getting yet another start. Both players who factored in so much last year with the USL team have seen minutes this year with the USL team. Adams more than Sean Davis, who's now fully fledged, I think, invested with the senior team. And then Alex Mule on Saturday night, looking like he was someone who had a little bit of adventure to him in the final third, confident on the dribble, wasn't afraid to go after defenders, making good decisions. I was also impressed with his speed in those conditions as well. And for a New York Red Bull senior team that I think is searching for some answers in the final third, Alex Mule could be somebody who I'm not sure if he's ready to be a week in, week out starter at 20 years old. Just a handful of minutes really in MLS play, but certainly is looking like somebody who's going to have a larger impact on this organization moving forward.
And we talk about the talent on the field for this New York Red Bull 2 roster, as well as for the Rochester Rhinos. And then you mentioned where it lands in development for these young players. Olex Anderson for Seattle Sounders getting a start yesterday after playing with Seattle Sounders 2 all of last year, the St. Vincent and Grenadines international. And Ziggy Schmidt said in the post-game press conference, Olex Anderson is more prepared to play professional soccer right now than Jordan Morris is because of his experience in USL compared to Jordan's experience in Stanford. And Anderson coming off the bench in the first few games, getting a start and an assist yesterday to be a difference maker for this team. Rochester goes short with the free kick. Acres of space now looking for the opening goal. The Rhinos a chance to cross now. They put it in, knocked down in the box, but cleared by Powder. Everyone in the final third defending for New York, giving Rochester plenty of space to play on the ball. Go down the wing towards Becker. Good cutback from him. He gets into the box, puts it to the far post, and Dos Santos gets ahead to it. And it looked like Joe Farrell behind him may have had a better angle at it. All USL matches are available live, free, and in HD on YouTube. Follow the action on the USL YouTube channel. And of course, you can go to NewYorkRedBulls.com for all of our home broadcasts, as well as all of your news and notes on this New York Red Bulls 2 team. They just made another signing this week. Zumana Simpara, a Malayan U17 Youth International Christian who, I don't know who broke that story, but he has signed with New York Red Bulls too.
Very handsome, young, intrepid reporter.
I don't know who it is.
I don't know either.
Yeah, you didn't give me any clues with that.
I'm not one to toot his own horn.
You should, of course, follow Christian Dyer on Twitter for all of your updates and news. 2 signings made throughout this season so far already, and both of them on the bench. Check Umbai out of Senegal, as well as Zumana Simpara.
And Zumana Simpara is really someone who he's a very raw player, has played some matches in Mali's first division. This is a big step up for him. He impressed in trials. He's an attacking player, can play midfield, can play forward. But I think that he's going to be someone who may be raw, but certainly has a tremendous amount of upside in the final third.
Speedy Williams has an unbelievable ability to hit it from distance, cuts back into space there. 30 yards out from him is like 10 yards out for another player.
Yeah, this is not the first time that we've seen Speedy Williams do this. And he takes a touch on the ball here, creates a little bit of space, a nice cutback, one touch, and with his right foot sends it not on frame, but right now for New York Red Bulls 2 team that's having some real difficulty breaking down those blocks of 4 that Rochester has in the midfield and the defense. A shot or 2 from outside is going to open things up, make Rochester respect that outside shot, and then lets Red Bull play it on the ground in behind. May just open up some things.
And it's good to see, I think, for Red Bull too, Derek Etienne coming in field there a little bit. Rochester looks very composed. New York hasn't done much to make them look uncomfortable yet, to really shift the back line. We'll see if Flemings and Etienne can come off the wings, float into some space, and open a few plays up. We saw Etienne do that against Steel FC in the last game.
And Red Bulls 2 has been very narrow in this match, which certainly plays into what Rochester wants. When they've been exposed a couple times, it's been from distance there a few moments ago from Speedy Williams. It's also been when Etienne's been able to find some space out wide. But right now, where is the width coming from the Red Bulls 2 team? It just hasn't been found yet.
This one will go out in favor of the Rhinos. Bernardo Forbes, the young Jamaican that you mentioned before, has been a huge part of this team. Asani Samuels, who's been starting the last few games up top, on the bench in this one with the return of Dos Santos, but another bullet in the chamber for Bob Lilly if he has to go to it.
Also a very good cornerback in the, oh wait, that's another, okay.
I'm just gonna let you enjoy that one.
I thought it was funny.
Throw in now. Bob Lilly, he's been around in USL for over 20 years now. He's one of the most effective coaches. He makes the playoffs every single year, no matter where he is, no matter what division or what league he's coaching in. Started with the Hershey Wildcats. Has this now in his second spell with the Rochester Rhinos, won a Canadian championship with Montreal Impact, as well as a USL championship over the Rochester Rhinos in Rochester with Vancouver Whitecaps. He's a coach with a lot of experience and now a continued amount of success after last year's both regular season and USL championship, only the second team to do that ever in USL history.
Very quick ball movement here. And this is where New York Red Bull 2 can be dangerous. If they're moving the ball quickly, it's going to open up space. They're forming those passing triangles, one touch ball, leads right to an opportunity at the edge of the area.
Etienne shot. After all of that, good ball movement, blocked, and now Rochester countering the other way. Conrad Pleva coming over from right back, making the tackle.
And in a sophisticated challenge there from Pleva, a lot of players would just try to take a big touch, instead just sliding along there, too small. Just his ability to read the game, see what needs to be done to maintain possession. You know, for a young player still growing and developing, those are the little things that if you're a head coach at the MLS level like Jesse Marsh, you say, okay, there's something here we can work with.
Speedy Williams, good footwork in tight space. New York to open this field up. As you mentioned, Etienne down the middle to Allen. Allen rounds the keeper, tries to get the shot on goal and puts it into the side net. First good look of the game for New York. Derek Etienne floats in field.
And we talked about this quick ball movement here, taking the pass. Etienne turns, center backs are pulled apart, really lose their shape, and Brandon Allen has to take that touch wide. I think he would have been better to settle down perhaps than take that opportunity there.
What you have to love watching that replay, though, is Apostolopoulos, you mentioned, has been following Brandon Allen, shadowing him, marking him. Allen did a good job of pulling him away from where he wanted to go and then making the run back into the area. Check out USL Soccer on Instagram to see match highlights and action shots from games around USL. Don't even say it, Christian, because you know I don't use Instagram.
You don't use it. Do you have an Instagram?
I have an Instagram account. I do have an Instagram account. There's a picture of pupusas on there to prove that I've eaten pupusas in my life. Because I did it in Brooklyn.
Can
like
we
all
say that on
hipsters.
air?
I think so. I think we're allowed to mention El Salvadorian delicious treats. Speedy Williams with acres of space now. I think just a bit too far for him to shoot. Metzger now looking up the field. They've got Shmuel in front of them. All 6'6", but they floated over his head. So Gomez hasn't had a lot to do, coming out just a second too late on that last opportunity. Brandon Allen able to beat him, but not find the back of the net. David Goss and Christian Dyer here at Red Bull Arena on NewYorkRedBulls.com and on YouTube, where all USL matches are live free and in HD. 0-0 between these two teams. That man, Steven Dos Santos, in his first appearance of the season, has had the best look of the game. A back heel that Rafi Diaz made the save on. Diaz coming on for the captain, Ryan Mira, just 12 minutes into this one, as Mira went off with an injury. He is sitting on the bench with the team. Brandon Allen just moments ago with the best look of the game in the attack for New York. Allen turns it over there. Chance now for Rochester to counter. Valesky on his horse immediately over the top. Him and Long in the battle, and Valesky comes away with it. Good work to get it back to the feet of Ugarte. Now Rochester comes up for support, and New York's able to get back and defend.
And this might be the best 40 minutes or so we've seen from Aaron Long so far in the USL season, winning all of his physical battles and distributing very cleanly.
Cross comes in from Allen to the far post, and Bonomo bangs it off the upright, and it's put out for a throw-in. Brandon Allen's teasing cross to that far post. Stefano Bonomo with the sliding shot, and he hits it off the crossbar, and now Rochester able to come away with it as this game really starting to open up here, Christian.
A quick distribution out of the back for Long into space. Brandon Allen makes his move, plays the ball across. Stefano Bonomo is there at the back post, very nearly 1-0 for New York Red Bulls too.
And I'm curious, Christian, what you think in that. Long starting the last game at right back, playing this one at center back. Seems maybe this is his true position.
He does seem a little bit more settled here. Certainly in terms of his distribution, I think the last game he was maybe a little bit more direct, but here's another good look. Brandon Allen finding some space, playing the ball quickly. Not a good job there by the Rochester back line to clear the ball. And Bonomo, as he so often does, lurking at the back post, very nearly a goal.
Bonomo 3 goals last season in just 9 appearances after signing with New York in the middle of the season. Although he was drafted by New York Red Bulls in MLS, he went around, had a few trials in Europe before signing with the team. Brandon Allen now has space to cross from the left wing, and it's cut out at the near post and now cleared by Rochester.
Rochester finding it difficult now with the Red Bulls pressing system to be able to break out, playing a little bit too slowly. When you're playing against a press system, you need to get that ball quickly, make sure that there's a long, accurate pass out of the back line, and then all of a sudden there will be acres of space. Right now, Rochester did that well for about 25 minutes or so to start the match. The last 10 or 15 minutes has really struggled to get out of their own end.
And it's one of the unique parts about the way this Red Bull team plays, and Wolnick mentioned it last year when they played this team, is they get offense from playing defense, and they want the other team to have the ball so that they can create turnovers and create offensive chances. And Rochester just does not like to hold the ball very long along their back line, and it makes it so tough for New York to try and find those opportunities. New York's next home match, Sunday, May 1st, as the Charlotte Independents come to Red Bull Arena at 5 p.m. For tickets and more info, log on to NewYorkRedBulls.com or call 1-877-727-6223 today. That's Sunday, May 1st at 4 p.m. The Independents getting their first win of the season last night at home over Charleston Battery. Allen tries to find Bonomo once again. This is a New York team. Most of the season, they play, I guess you could say, a 4-2-3-1. Today playing more of a 4-2-2-2. What have you thought about how that's played out so far for this team?
Well, when you're looking at their defensive shape, I think against a team as direct as Rochester, it certainly has worked. Rochester's going to get a couple of opportunities. When you have a player such as a Dos Santos or Valesky out there, they're going to be able to get 1 or 2 opportunities each half. But in terms of offense, it's been very narrow, and I think that's played into Rochester's hands for the most part. So I think in the second half, I know the bench isn't as deep as it has been in times past for Red Bulls 2 head coach John Walenek. I think he might need to look and see if there's any kind of speed that they can bring on board. Maybe Sampara can bring something a little bit there. He does have the ability to stretch the field, float out wide. Might just be the ticket for what this team needs because their attacking is way too narrow.
Brian Saramago as well on the bench, a young attacker on loan from the Red Bull Academy. Headed off to college in a few months. Actually appeared in the USL last season for New York Red Bulls too, and now back once again this year, already playing 50 minutes in this season. Leyva sprays it across the field. Metzger now wearing the captain's armband with Ryan Meir off the field. New York Red Bull 2 and Rochester Rhinos locked in 0-0 so far here at RBA. Just a few minutes left in the first half. New York Red Bulls 2 have never defeated the Rochester Rhinos in official competition. They've never played in unofficial competition, but I can say it anyway. Rochester going 3-0-1 last year against this team, as well as ending their playoff hopes as New York beat the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in their first ever playoff game here at Red Bull Arena before falling up at Salin Stadium. New York looking to attack now with some numbers. Rochester, a little bend but don't break defensively from them. Dropping numbers back behind the ball. Forbes reads that one well. Can he start the counterattack? Feed of Valesky. Valesky now makes the run off of it, read by both Shmuel and Leyva. Tim Shmuel didn't get any minutes last game after starting the first 2 games, but he's looked very comfortable so far this afternoon.
Very, very solid. Perhaps a couple an errant pass here or there, but I think defensively winning his one-on-one battles and the physical presence that he's bringing with the Red Bulls backline, it's a little bit smaller, a little bit younger. I think he's been instrumental. This is probably the best we've seen him look now in this 4th game in the USL season.
Junior Fleming's down across the field. So the trainer will come out now for the second time. So far in this game, you see Bob Lilly there on your screen, a USL Hall of Fame coach. What a career he's had. I mentioned all the championships he's won and the different cities he's been in. Coached the Rhinos from 2009 to 2011 and then returned again in 2014 for his second stint with the team, winning the championship last year. And you mentioned the incredible numbers that they put up throughout last season. Only 1 loss, undefeated at home. Both regular season and postseason championship. Knocking off Louisville City in the Eastern Conference Finals before beating the LA Galaxy 2 in the final at home.
So now that we have a break in the action, David, what team did John Walenek play for? What MLS team did John Walenek play for?
So this is my confusion because he played for more than one team.
Yes, but immediately before.
I don't know immediately. He played for the Metro Stars.
He did.
And he played for the Chicago Fire.
Yes, there we go.
Was that the team?
That was the team.
I didn't know the order exactly. Well, I did know the order. I didn't know if he played for someone else after Chicago and before he played for Rhinos.
We could have found this answer out on Wikipedia within 30 seconds if you were a true hipster.
We could have done it.
And Wikipedia is the best because anyone can put the information up there so you know it's accurate.
3 minutes of stoppage time. We are now entering in this one. John Wolyniec playing, of course, then in 2001 with the Rhinos. Played with Jesse Marsh in his time in Chicago. Said it was a big part of his development as a player, learning how to bring intensity and aggression to the game, something we know Jesse Marsh is a big fan of.
And when Bob Bradley came here to be head coach of the Metro Stars after his very successful stint with the Chicago Fire, one of the players he brought on board was John Wolyniec.
Also, this week a video came out, the best goals in every MLS team's club's history, and Mr. Wolyniec's, of course, famous volley coming in as #1 for New York.
Beating out Kenny Arena, scoring with his backside, why I never.
I thought Clint Mathis in the 5-goal game, one of those had a claim as one of the greatest goals in Red Bull or New York history, but we'll see. Maybe we'll see one of the greatest goals in New York Red Bull 2 history.
Clint Mathis's goal in 2001 against Kansas City was probably one of the best goals I've ever seen in person, where he danced through what had to be about 2/3 of the team, making a full run down the field and scoring a nice volley.
Brandon Allen, the next Clint Mathis, down there on the field right now. It's a tough title to give someone. I agree with you, Christian. I see the horror look on your face. About halfway through the 3 minutes of stoppage time, 0-0 so far in this one between New York Red Bulls 2 and the Rochester Rhinos, the 2015 USL regular season and postseason champions, coming in here at 1-0-1. Coach Bob Lilly, New York coming in at 2-0-1 off a 4-0 win against Steel FC in the last game. If New York is able to find a goal and a victory in this one, they'd move to first place. Junior Flemings looks for the feet of Etienne, but plays it just a bit too long.
The next Clint Mathis? Wow. You knocked my socks off on that one.
You got to set bars really high.
Little known fact, but Clint Mathis actually had a bar in his house when he was here in the Metro Stars, in the basement.
Seems like something people could have guessed. So that's it. First half action complete as Jaime Herrera blows the whistle. Steven Dos Santos, a great look on goal. Brandon Allen, an opportunity as well, but these two teams still locked in at 0-0 as we head towards halftime. We'll be back with first half thoughts and highlights here on NewYorkRedBulls.com. Vegas and Christian Dyer back here at Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey on NewYorkRedBulls.com and USL YouTube page as New York Red Bulls 2 coming into this weekend at first place in the Eastern Conference, facing off against the 2015 USL champions, Rochester Rhinos. We'll have first half highlights coming up in a couple of minutes. Christian, thoughts so far on this one?
I think for the most part, Rochester's come in and has done a really nice job defensively, keeping their shape. Dominic Samuel and Joe Farrell, I thought, doing a very nice job there in the center of the defense. And for New York, I think it's a lack of creativity in the final third. Too many long balls playing right into Rochester's strength.
Well, the kids are out on the field, and by that I don't mean the mascots, I mean the youth kids, as there are 4 academy players on the bench for New York Red Bulls 2, potentially to come in to this one and try and make a difference, as Bob Lilly's boys, like you mentioned, coming in here and getting a job done so far through 45 minutes. We'll be back in just a few minutes with all your first half highlights and second half action here on NewYorkRedBulls.com. Back here on NewYorkRedBulls.com, New York Red Bulls 2 against Rochester Rhinos here at Red Bull Arena. David Goss and Christian Dyer joining you, and let's look at these first half highlights. Christian, a few big opportunities for both teams.
Yeah, and a lot of space there on the left side for Rochester. Dos Santos doing so well. Cheeky little effort. We would have been talking about that one if it had gone in. But what you like is the run from Dos Santos. Well-timed back heel with his left foot. Very nearly put Rochester up 1-0. Brand new goalkeeper Rafi Diaz coming in midway through the first half. And Red Bull, the home side opportunities few and far between, but we saw the final 15 minutes or so finding balls. Brandon Allen at the center of that first one, taking the touch out here, and here Etienne into Brandon Allen, just having to push it out too wide. Tomas Gomez doing a good job coming out to challenge the Rochester goalkeeper, forcing Brandon Allen. His better opportunity probably was here playing the ball across. That was not well handled by Rochester. Stefano Bonomo very nearly getting on the end of this one, putting it right up against the back post.
New York Red Bull 2 and Rochester Rhinos back out on the field now and ready for the second half of action. Steven Dos Santos trying something similar to what Didier Drogba did yesterday. 5 minutes into his MLS return, getting a goal, and this Rochester Rhinos are looking for a goal themselves. An unbelievable amount of 1-0 wins last year for this Rochester Rhinos team. They were middle of the table when it came to goals scored and ended up, as we said, in first place. So this is a very comfortable place and style for them.
And a very consistent team. Rochester a season ago went 19 matches unbeaten. It's a team that goes out there, churns out results. Defense first and foremost, and then picking their opportunities in the final third. Very effective team in the final third. They don't get a whole lot of opportunities, but when they do, they pounce and make the most of it.
John Wolenek there staying on brand with his Red Bull in hand, as well as his Red Bull 2 polo on. Looks like Christian Valesky as well, jogging back out onto the field. One substitution already. You mentioned it, Rafi Diaz coming in to goal due to an injury to Ryan Mira in that first half, and Diaz almost immediately forced into that big save on Dos Santos. Otherwise, not much work he's had to do. You'd think Rochester would want to test a goalkeeper coming off the bench, and Diaz has had a pretty quiet afternoon.
I'm sure they would love to, but Devin Speedy Williams and Dan Metzger playing a little bit deeper of the two midfielders, have done a good job in intercepting a lot of the balls, snuffing out the opportunities, and Tim Schmoll as well has been very effective, winning everything in the air. 6'6" central defenders, first year as a professional, out of Harvard, played with the Red Bulls PDL team a season ago, has certainly looked the part right now of someone who has stepped up from college soccer up to the USL level. Probably the best 45 minutes we've seen from Tim Schmoll so far this year.
Tim Schmoll out of Switzerland by way of Harvard University, coming to the New York Red Bulls 2 squad this year after playing with their U23 squad last summer that went all the way to the PDL championships. Left-footed cross comes in from Becker. Rochester maybe looking to put a little pressure on to start out this half. They were content to sit pretty deep defensively and look to hit direct over the top towards Valesky throughout the first half.
And Valesky's one of those guys who can stretch a back line with his speed, with his ability to make those runs from the center stripe all the way into the final third. And then that can open up other things for Dos Santos for a near post run when the ball gets wide on the left side, as we saw earlier in the first half.
Good battle going on that far side. Forbes comes away with it, trying to use his speed to get outside of Long. Schmoll with the interception and turns it back over. And Aaron Long comes away with it. Long out of UC Riverside has bounced around the USL and MLS early on in his young career. Drafted by the Timbers, put on loan to Sac Republican OC Blues, and now with New York Red Bulls 2. This one's clipped over the top and headed away by Farrell.
I think a very good 45 minutes for New York as well. Dan Metzger, second start since last year when his season was cut short with a knee injury. He was very effective in his defensive work, again sitting in front of that back four, did a good job. I think it's a good 45 minutes, and we're seeing Dan Metzger, who was part of the U.S. under-23 rosters last year, really kind of rounding out into form.
Metzger is getting surgery in July of 2015 and played in a professional soccer game until the beginning of April this year. Seemed very happy after the last game, just to be playing, really.
I had the opportunity to see him in training in March with the USL team. After first session, he was so frustrated, and John Wolenek just had the opportunity to come up to Dan Metzger and say, hey, first training session back in 8 months. It's going to take time. Keep doing your work. But that shows what Dan Metzger has inside of him. We saw it at the University of Maryland, the high level that he played at. He's a consummate two-way sort of midfielder, good defensively. I think that part of his game is still developing. Offensively, certainly not lacking for confidence in that regard. And judging from what we've seen in training, certainly has the desire to get better and to improve.
Schmoll bangs that one off Dos Santos and out. for the New York throw-in. Metzger, you mentioned it, University of Maryland, drafted by DC United before signing with New York Red Bulls too. He was a New York Red Bull Academy player. Etienne looks to spray it out wide, intercepted by Samuel.
We've seen now a couple times in the second half Noah Powder inching up from that left back position. Perhaps Red Bull getting a little bit more comfortable in their defensive shape. Going to let Powder with good speed, good one-on-one ability to sneak up a little bit.
And Bernardo Forbes trying to take advantage of that open space left by Powder before finally Long comes over to help. Now Powder gets back. Cross goes to the far post towards Ugarte.
And Ugarte made 9 appearances last year for Rochester, really growing into a more prominent role with some of the changes and upheaval they've had in the offseason. I think that he's going to be somebody that Lilly is going to be looking at to play a bigger role with this team. The amount of running he has to do in the midfield is very important, and what he brings in the final third is going to be important too.
Offsides called against Bonomo here, and Ugarte now going to fill in Mendoza as well as Dixon last year for this Rochester team. A large part of the offensive production for them, that creativity and the crosses for the size that they have up front, from Samuels to Valesky to Dos Santos, so key to get quality crosses in consistently from the wing. Dos Santos flicks this one on towards Toast, and Schmoll puts it out of bounds for a corner kick. An opportunity for the big bodies for the Rhinos to get forward as Farrell and Apostolopoulos push up the field, the two 6'10" towers at center back.
And Farrell's going to be someone that Red Bulls fans will know very well. Was a part of the, the under-23 team last year. Big, strong body in the middle of there on the set piece.
Forbes puts it in the box, headed to the far post, and it'll roll out of bounds. And Farrell, a guy that Coach Wolnick's familiar with from his coaching.
Absolutely, and we're seeing now throughout the USL a number of former Red Bulls Academy players who may not have been signed by the first team, may not have been signed by the USL team, beginning to get opportunities, and it's a point of pride for John Wolnick. He also has a little bit of insight in terms of scouting some of these players, but it also shows the depth of what is the best academy system in the entire MLS and in the United States. You just gave me a very strong look.
I didn't give you a look. I was listening to you. I was very intrigued by what you had to say.
Name a better academy system in MLS right now, sending players to the senior team, also winning tournaments, representing the team as well as Red Bull Academy has done.
None. There are none. Red Bull Academy captain, who led them to a Generation Adidas Cup championship last year, Mason Deeds, we just saw heading over to warm up. He'll be heading to Georgetown in the fall, as long as Czech Umbaye, one of those two young players to sign over the last few weeks with USL, trained a little bit, I believe, with the first team
down in Florida. Yes, he's somebody he has good height, needs to put on a little bit more size. He's raw in terms of his tactical understanding of the game, but with what he has in terms of just the physical ability, the willingness, and pure instincts, very promising young player.
Tosh with the interception there. Metzger now has to recover, but he turns it over to Forbes. Noah Powder showing off his speed to catch up with Forbes. Tosh, a quiet game so far in that central midfield out of Oswego, Illinois, the Northern Illinois defender. Tosh, along with Tony Walls, plays for the Milwaukee Wave in the offseason in the Indoor Soccer League. Walls playing there along with J.C. Banks a few years ago is the reason Walls ended up in Rochester. Forbes hits it long. Great ball to the feet of Ugarte. One-on-one now with Pleva. Ugarte looking to get to the end line, and the cross is blocked. Valesky keeps it into the feet of Pleva.
And I think in about 8 minutes right now in the second half, we've called out Canardo Forbes' name more than we did in the first half. He's finding more space, pushing forward. It's very obvious that Rochester is trying to exploit some of the space that Noah Powder is leaving as he's overlapping on that left side. With a team like this, that's going to be very dangerous.
Etienne on the run, and Gomez able to get there just in time. Fleming's played him in. Now, if you're the home team in New York and Coach Wolenek, you're a team that likes to play high-scoring games. Rochester's the opposite. Do you prefer that you take risks, they get opportunities, but you do as well? Do you mind that trade-off in a game like this?
Well, certainly when you're looking at a cost-benefit analysis, the only way that New York is going to be able to break down a defensive back line as stout as this one, giving up very few opportunities, is going to be that they're going to have to take some risks. So whether they move some of the players wider, whether it is committing Noah Powder to those overlapping runs to finally force the Rochester back line to become less compact, become stretched out, so that a Brandon Allen or a Stefano Bonomo can make those runs towards the near post and the back post to find some space. Something has to be done, because right now the hopeless long balls, the direct play, it just isn't working.
Forbes gets Powder on his heels. 1-2 between him and Dos Santos. It's intercepted by Long. Now he looks for the feet of Etienne. Miscommunication between him and Bonomo there. Let's turn back over. This was why we were very intrigued by this matchup. New York
Very
had done
intrigued.
so well against Steel FC in the last game, but Steel FC, a young team, a new franchise.
Yeah, really lacking identity.
And then this is a Rochester team that knows exactly what they want to do, and it's almost the opposite of what these New York players do. They're more mature players, more physical, a lot of height on this team, a team that likes to play defensively. On the flip side, New York, a lot of young attacking players who like to take risk. What have you seen so far from these New York young players as Rochester gets into the attack? Forbes plays it down to the wing to Dos Santos, and a cross goes out for the corner kick. But New York seems to be holding their own. They can't find a way to get an advantage.
They are, and one of the things is when you play against a team that has a system, you have to be willing to take your opportunities. New York hasn't done that so far.
Keep up to date with the USL all season long by visiting new USLsoccer.com for everything you need to know about USL and its 29 teams. Forbes will take this corner kick. He's got a lot of options in the box. Once again, the second corner kick of this half. Floats it into the middle of the box. It's headed away by New York. Rochester still has numbers up the field if they can get it back in. And Becker's ball floated long and it'll roll out of bounds.
And Rochester a lot more committed to winning those second balls now, which has led to a handful of more opportunities than we saw in the entirety of the first half. Now just 10 minutes, 11 minutes into the second half, winning those second balls in the final third, knocking them down, being able to shoot from distance. Certainly that has to be worrisome if you're New York Red Bulls 2 head coach John Wolenek, that lack of size that you have in the back line outside of Tim Schmall might eventually get exploited with some of these head balls.
Huge chance here down this right side. Forbes has space. Looks to cut in. The left-footed shot rolled, and Diaz makes the save.
And Forbes doing so well, finding space down there, down that right channel, the ball being sprayed out there. Could have conceivably taken another touch or two to bring it in on goal. Full credit to Rafi Diaz being thrown into a difficult situation, having to come in 15, 20 minutes into the first half, has certainly stood up in every opportunity he's had to snuff out so far.
And Noah Powder caught in no man's land on that one. It was pushed wide, and Forbes was the only player on that far side of the field. Acres of space. Fleming now trying to cut in.
And according to Eric Friedlander on Facebook, the New York Red Bulls discussion group, he's calculated, and I don't do maths, but I'll rely on him. He's calculated the average age of this Red Bulls starting 11, 18.4 years old.
And that's what this is all about for them, youth and development, but it has met production so far this year, 2-0-1, as well as last year making a postseason appearance in their debut for the franchise, hosting the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in the first round and then traveling to Rochester, eventually falling in that one. Maybe an opportunity to go a step more this year. You have to think a guy like Brandon Allen, Derek Etienne will be staples for this team throughout. As a free kick is called in favor of New York. Highlight here, Forbes, like you said, cutting in Didn't get a lot on that shot, but with so many bodies there, it's tough for Diaz to see it, and then he knows he has to hold it clean.
But doing well to be able to get some separation, being able to cut into the center instead of taking it out far right like many players would have taken. I think Forbes is someone who, if he gets going, this Rochester team, with the way they defend, could be a very, very dynamic team for the rest of the USL season. He has a unique skill set along with Leski and Dos Santos on this roster. And Forbes, when given space, is a game changer.
Pleva turns it over. Leski now in a battle with Schmoll. Schmoll's able to win the throw-in. First substitution now of the second half coming for New York, and it'll be the first ever appearance for Cheick Umbaye, number 93, coming on for Aaron Long, a like-for-like sub there at center back. Cheick Umbaye coming out of St. Louis, Senegal, 6'4" and just 20 years old. You mentioned it, he trialed with the first team. He played last year with Bordeaux in France, 7 reserve matches, no first team appearances. And this his first ever appearance in red and white.
And he's someone who comes from France's League One. He is, as we said, a raw player, but physically, if he can do some growing, add some muscle, comfortable with the ball at his feet, reads the game well instinctually, has to understand tactically his assignments in the center of the defense or wherever he ends up playing with the Red Bulls. But a very promising player, comes highly touted. Red Bull had a look at him in preseason, and now being able to fully get him on the USL roster. He, along with Junior Flemings, Devin Speedy Williams, the recent signing of Simpara, there's a lot of good young international talent on this roster as well.
And now it's Powder with the right-footed shot as he comes forward. Cheick Umbaye, trying to trick everyone out there, comes on the field as a center back and immediately gets himself up into the attack, but he is a center back as Powder comes forward from that left back spot, and he drives that shot.
Yeah, cutting in, certainly not with his favored foot. He would prefer to hit that with his left foot, but I think doing well, find the space, and finding a lot of territory and turf there on the left-hand side, but also willingness to cut in centrally.
Become a fan of USL on Facebook for exclusive league news and interactive content. That's USL on Facebook. Umbaye now immediately on the field in a battle. Dos Santos gets the shot away, but the foul is called previously. This is not going to be an easy debut for a guy like Cheick Umbaye. We've seen how much Long and Schmoll have had to defend individually against these big, athletic, physical Rochester forwards.
And it's a very thin line when you're a center back between physical play and being willing to take the foul. And it took the referee a moment or two there to decide to blow the whistle on that. So I think it was a little bit of a very early wake-up call for Mbaye that maybe he doesn't go down quite as easily next time.
Allen's onsides here. Gets it to the feet of Etienne. His touch just a bit too long. It's cleared away by Apostolopoulos. Great work in the middle of the field for New York. Trying to move the ball quicker. Williams comes away with it. As we play on, Etienne's onside. He has the shot, and it's touched off the post and out. I believe
that's going to be for a corner kick,
it should be for a corner kick.
But a good job there from Devin Speedy Williams to be able to prolong the play, win that second ball. And Etienne, I was thinking that he needed to play that ball to Bonomo on the back post. Boy, did he prove me wrong. That was a well-taken effort. And a player with so much confidence right now to take a shot from that angle, very nearly put it in the upper 90.
And Etienne going over to take this corner kick. Every single player on the field for Rochester is in their own 18 right now to defend this corner kick.
It's like watching the U.S. national team on the road.
Corner played in and knocked down. New York get a chance to get a shot away. It floats wide to Pleva. Now he gets a chance. He cuts back on one, and the shot is blocked.
But what confidence, one composure there from Pleva, just to be able to pull the ball back and then play it in. New York almost looks like they're on a power play right now.
Etienne takes on one defender. The tackle made right in front of Jaime Herrera. He points to the ball and says, play on.
And I think that was the right call there from Herrera. That was a bit of physical play, but I don't know if that would amount to being necessarily a foul in the area.
Metzger coming back, gets a touch to it, to his teammate Williams. So the action starting to come now, as a free kick will go in favor of New York. Bonomo going down. Substitution getting ready to come on. Mike Gamble's going to make his first ever Rochester Rhinos appearance in this one. Looks like he's going to come on for Marcos Ugarte. But he'll have to wait till after this free kick. New York getting two great looks in the past minute of action for both Derek Etienne and Conrad Pleva. And now Etienne will stand over this free kick. The 6'4" Umbaye, along with the 6'6" Schmoll, the two main targets. Etienne floats this one into the far post. There's options there, and Gomez gets out and punches it very well. Can New York get a second bite at it? Plays it to the feet of Fleming. Fleming's touch just a little bit too long. And it will go out of bounds, excuse me. I believe this might be a foul against New York.
It looked like Brandon Allen there was just backing into the Rochester defender, who was pretty well draping him.
So now the substitution will come. Mike Gamble, born in England, raised in Maryland. 30th pick in the 2016 Super Draft by the New England Revolution. Has yet to appear this year for either the Revolution or the Rhinos. And Ugarte's afternoon is done. He's got the lone assist on the season for Rochester. This his third start in 3 games.
And a little bit of an unheralded match there for Ugarte. I think, in a match that lacked some ebb and flow for much of the opening 55 minutes or so, did a lot of hard running, a lot of dirty work, kind of keep that defensive shape. He's certainly someone who isn't going to always draw a lot of the highlights necessarily, but is so important for what Bob Lilly wants to do in the midfield defensively. And I thought this was another one of those prototypical sort of games for him.
Bonomo was onside there. Could not get on the end of it. It's the tackle made by Powder very late from him, and an obvious yellow card for Jaime Herrera to give to him.
Perhaps fortunate on that one. There was a little bit of a scissor action just towards the end of it. Well, certainly wasn't malicious, but I think it's a little bit of a sloppy sort of challenge from Noah Powder.
And can point out Marcos Ugarte, the only player on Rochester with a yellow card, so maybe some of that thinking in Bob Lilly's thought process as he wanted to make a change anyway. Bringing on Gamble. He's got attacking players in Asani Samuels and Andre Fortune on the bench, as well as Ryan James. All 3 of those appearing in the last game on the road against Richmond in a 1-0 loss. Iwamura with the lone goal in that one off a Rochester mistake. Grinwis getting caught on a bad long ball there. That gave the chance as Flemings rips the shot from distance and puts it over the top and out of bounds. And a goal kick to Thomas Gomez. Follow at USL on Twitter to keep up with all of the live action during the 2016 USL season. And if you want any insider information on New York Red Bulls 2 potential signings and trial lists, who do you follow, Christian?
USL Soccer?
Or you can follow Mr. Christian Dyer on Twitter. See if we can steal you a follower or 2. Headed away by Farrell. Tosh up the line to Gamble. Gamble, one of the all-time leading scorers in Wake Forest history, one of 2 members of Wake Forest drafted in the Super Draft. Jack Harrison going as the first pick. As Flemings goes down for the 2nd time in this game. We might have another yellow card coming out here. We do. Jaime Herrera showing it to Joe Farrell, and Allen wants a 2nd yellow card now. So this game's starting to get a little bit scrappier in the 68th. Joe Farrell playing at LaSalle University under his father as the head coach, ended up being captain of that team. Very special moment for that family. Free kick coming from Etienne. Floats it into the middle of the box. Knocked away by the Rhinos. And cleared. Can Williams get this one back into the box?
And it looks like we might be seeing Sampara coming on the field in a couple moments. His New York Red Bulls 2 debut.
And you mentioned some of the pieces that have been a big part of this team so far this season, not here today, in a Tyler Adams, a Sean Davis, as well as an Alex Mule. And so other players getting opportunities. Stefano Bonomo's afternoon is done. He hit the post on the best look of the game. Was not able to find the back of the net, though. And the substitution made now for Bonomo. Zumana Simpara, an 18-year-old out of Mali.
Part of that under-17 Mali team that did so well, made it all the way to the championship game of the under-17 World Cup, played in 2 matches there. Midfielder, probably a little bit more comfortable at this stage in his development as a forward. Saw him on Monday training with the senior team. He's a player with, a large amount of technical ability, some good speed as well. Certainly has the building blocks you want to see for someone at this level to take time and develop. He's going to be raw, but he's got the work ethic that you want to see from an 18-year-old making his USL debut, trying to eventually work his way up to the senior team.
Throw in for Rochester. Sampara, these, like you said, raw, great athletes, talented soccer player. New York Red Bulls are trying to turn into first-team players. Sampara's first opportunity on the ball, back to Metzger.
And who did Mali lose to in that World Cup?
To Serbia. Coached by, oh no, that's the U20 World Cup.
That would be.
I don't know.
Super Eagles.
Ah.
Nigeria.
I remember watching Mali beat Brazil in the semifinals. That was the last game I watched of that competition. New York having
That's a good way
tough,
to end it.
U.S. having a tough tournament, but they were led by Christian Pulisic, who scored his first career Borussia Dortmund goal earlier today. Nike is a proud partner of USL. Follow at Nike Soccer on Twitter for all of the latest Nike soccer information. Nike.com/soccer. David Goss and Christian Dyer nerding out here on NewYorkRedBulls.com and USL YouTube page as the New York Red Bulls 2 coming into this one at 2-0-1, locked in 0-0 against the 2015 USL champions Rochester Rhinos. 70 minutes of action have been played so far in this one.
That's Dos Santos. Looks like he's down, maybe a little bit of a knock to the ankle.
3 substitutes getting ready to come on. Kevin O'Toole, it looks like, is going to make his professional soccer debut for New York Red Bulls 2. On the flip side, Dos Santos' afternoon may be done anyway, as Asani Samuels is up talking to Bob Lilly, as well as it looks like Ryan James, the young Canadian attacker, but we will see. Farrell will take this free kick. Seeing Apostolopoulos will stay back at the midfield line. It's floated up towards Dos Santos. Umbaye wins the initial header. Flemings with 2 touches after that. Garzi's had a quiet afternoon in midfield. This one played out in front of Etienne. Intercepted by Apostolopoulos. Big center back goes down after playing the ball. Campbell trying to show off a little bit of what he brings. One of those New England Revolution loanees for this Rochester team, their MLS affiliation. And a foul will go against New York on that far side. Kevin O'Toole, a defender for the New York Red Bull U18 Academy team. So we'll see who he comes in for and at what position in this one. Sonny Samuels, a big forward who scored 2 goals in the USL Championship game in stoppage time and then extra time for the win. Ryan James, a winger as well, ready to come on. This one's floated in. Forbes trying to get a second look at it. And it rolls out of bounds. So O'Toole will come in for Noah Powder. He'll go in at left back. Noah Powder, 4th straight start to begin his professional career, Christian.
And is built each and every match.
As well, Ryan James coming on in this one in place of Joe Becker. And Asani Samuels coming on in place of Christian Valesky. So Valesky's afternoon is done. Did not start in the last game against Richmond, came off the bench, not getting a full 90 minutes here. Valesky, he scored in the first game, but not quite firing yet this season for Bob Lilly.
No, but he's one of the difference makers that Bob Lilly does have at his disposal. One-on-one, the technical ability, the speed that he has, it is so unique on this roster. A little surprised to see him coming out.
Now Ryan James coming on as well in place of Joe Becker, a fullback. So expect to see Sean Tosh move from central midfield to fullback and Canardo Forbes to push more centrally, giving them 3 true attacking midfielders rather than the 2 box-to-box guys in the middle.
And yet what I don't like about that is even though Forbes may get more time on the ball, he's more dangerous when he's isolated out on the wing 1v1. Will he have the same ability we saw the first 10-15 minutes of the second half to be able to take that ball, cut in, and be able to find some space that he will centrally with a Devin Williams in there, Dan Metzger, who have done so much good, hard, gritty defensive work in the center of the Red Bulls midfield. I'm not sure if that's necessarily an ideal fit for this match.
I was going to tell you, I think Bob Lilly agrees. It looks like Ryan James might be the one going in at central midfield.
Well, thanks for setting me up for failure
incorrect.
There, David. I appreciate that.
But we'll see. It's a dog-eat-dog world up here in the booth between me and Christian. The ball down the line. And New York cannot keep it in. Ryan James out of Bowling Green started in the last match out on the wing against Richmond. He was the 52nd pick in this year's Super Draft by Sporting KC. Came up in the TFC Academy. His brother was actually drafted in the 2012 MLS supplemental draft.
And a lot of space there on the left side for Etienne.
One-on-one now, Tosh switching to that fullback spot. He's able to get enough of a touch. And then Farrell taken down. All USL matches are available live, free, and in HD on YouTube. Follow the action on the USL YouTube channel. And of course, all home games you can find on NewYorkRedBulls.com, as well as all of your news, notes, standings, and roster updates as they go through the season. And a foul will go against Asani Samuels. Samuels, another 6'2" option on the front line alongside Dos Santos, a local guy going to college at Canisius College, playing for FC Buffalo before his time with Rochester last season. Good work from Metzger to open up the passing angle. They can't find a teammate. Samuel will go up the line and out of bounds. So about 15 minutes left here for one of these teams to try and find a winner. Last year in the opening game of the season, these 2 teams duked it out here to a 0-0 draw. And then Rochester 3 victories at home against New York Red Bulls 2. Later in the season, we saw coming out of halftime or around the 60th minute, New York get a few good opportunities. It's quieted down now and the ball's gone more towards Rochester's way. As Conrad Pleva is down behind the play. New York already losing 1 player to injury. Substitute Mason Deeds coming on, getting ready to come on. Captain of the U16 and U18 squads. I mentioned earlier, headed to Georgetown in the fall, and Pleva right in front of the Red Bull bench. Does not look very happy.
Well, it was a very good, solid 77 minutes for Conrad Pleva. I thought in the first couple matches here in the USL season, he had some struggles. He had a bit of a learning curve, but certainly against the team Rochester, where his season ended prematurely last year with that questionable, somewhat questionable red card, at least from New York Red Bulls' perspective, after 22 minutes in that match. I think Pleva really settled in well the past couple matches for New York. And this was probably the best performance we've seen from him this year.
So Mason Deeds checks in, his second appearance this season after 2 USL appearances and a U.S. Open Cup appearance last year. New York Red Bulls 2 will no longer be able to compete in U.S. Open Cup action. That was the one opportunity, the one ever New York Red Bull 2 U.S. Open Cup game.
I hope they change that rule.
Yeah.
The more competitive matches, the more opportunities these guys have to play. Listen, I spoke with some USL players last year, and they were telling me they foresaw a day in a year or two when New York Red Bulls 2 would be playing New York Red Bulls in the U.S. Open Cup. That's where they saw their team developing. I think the more high-level matches that these players get, the more opportunities they have to play at this level in environments such as this, it can only help this game grow.
Now, do you think it's fair for New York Red Bulls 2 to play New York Red Bulls? I mean, is that potentially fair competition? Two teams are run by the same person.
I think when it's all said and done, it's about the development of these young players, and any team is going to want to put their players out there in the right environment, in the right system, so that their confidence is there, but certainly so that they continue their development curve. It's really in the best interest of the sport.
USL had a great performance last year as they get this foul. Charlotte Independence making the longest run under Mike Jeffries before falling to Chicago Fire. And as I said, U.S. Open Cup will get started once again this year, May 18th. USL teams will get involved. This is a fantastic free kick opportunity here for New York. 4 players standing over it that want a potential shot at this one. Christian is now Speedy Williams, it looks like, and Simpara take themselves out of it. So Brandon Allen and Derek Etienne, the 2 homegrown signings, standing over this one. Etienne a goal last game. Brandon Allen 3 goals in the first 3 games of the season. A big wall in front of it for Rochester. Allen with the left foot and Etienne with the right. Looks like it will be Etienne, the right-footed shot, and it's tipped over the top by Gomez.
And Gomez, certainly coming in for a bigger name goalkeeper, has done very well this match. The few times that he's been tested, organizes the wall well. Here in Etienne going over the wall. Gomez doing well, getting his left hand up there to deny. It was probably going to go over, but I think he made the right choice there just to push it over the top.
Corner kick played out. Metzger pushing it wide to Deeds. His cross off, looked like the face of Samuel, and out of bounds. About 10 minutes left here at Red Bull Arena in this USL matchup. The 4th game of the season for New York Red Bulls 2, the 3rd game of the season for the Rochester Rhinos.
And Red Bull has to be careful here. Their back line's stretched out all over the place, a lot of space.
Forbes cuts back on the first defender, floats that cross in. Metzger able to head it down to a teammate. And that's put off of Tosh and out of bounds.
And that was a very good intercept there by Tosh, doing well. If not, Etienne could have been flying into the final third.
Check out at USL Soccer on Instagram to see match highlights and action shots from games around the USL. I was watching some of the highlights on Twitter for USL, at USL, on my way out here on the path. Chandler Hoffman with 2 goals for Louisville City as they are looking to replace Matt Fondy. The all-time single-season goal-scoring record for Louisville City last year has departed.
Shorter commute for you on the path to Red Bull Arena or to Yankee Stadium, David?
To Yankee Stadium. That's what happens when you live up in Harlem. New York Red Bulls 2, making Red Bull Arena their home for now. They will travel on the road next week down to face off against Wilmington Hammerheads. This one goes out of bounds in favor. New York FC Montreal travels to Rochester next week for the home opener. Don't forget to go online to rochesterrhinos.com for your tickets. April 23rd, 5 p.m. Eastern Time at Sallin Stadium. The Oak Street Brigade will be out in force as Flemings floats this one across the face of goal. It's still in bounds on the far side. Zumbaye chases it down, trying to win a corner kick, but puts it out for a goal kick.
And perhaps a little bit naive there from Simpara. Really needs to be able to take another touch there, control the ball. There was no reason to rush into that decision, but keep in mind, this is a player making his debut with New York Red Bulls too. Brand new country, brand new system, brand new way of doing things and expectations. Has a very bright future, but you want to begin to see him piece together some of these things over the next couple of weeks.
He's appeared for AS Bakari John in the Mali Premier League.
You have their jersey at home, I heard.
That would be a sick kick Friday if I were to show up with one of those. Tell him if he has one, though, that I would take it off his hands. Samuels with the header in front. The fate of Gamble. Gamble back to Samuels. The switch of the field. Forbes lines up the shot, batted down by Diaz. Cleared by New York. And now Williams finally able to get it away. Canardo Forbes, another good look here in the second half.
And now a lot of space here on the counter for Red Bull with Etienne streaking down that left wing.
Allen trying to find Etienne's feet once again.
And as great as the potential of Brandon Allen is, that has been his drawback now through the first month of the USL season. Sometimes he needs to just play it simple, keep the ball in front of him, hold up play down to space. Tried to be a little bit too cute right there. Brandon Allen needs to begin to develop the parts of his game beyond just the scoring. We've seen now he can score goals. He's a streaky goal scorer. He loves to take opportunities. He's lethal inside the 18, but where's the rest of that development?
You see the opportunity starting with Rochester. Canardo Forbes lines up that volley. Does a good job getting his leg over it, but Rafi Diaz once again equal to the task. We named a couple stars that you were looking out for coming into the game. Who's impressed you so far in these 85 minutes?
Well, I certainly think when you're looking at Rochester first and foremost, Dos Santos has certainly lived up to the hype in terms of his movement in the final third. Haven't had a whole lot of opportunities. I think Joe Farrell has done a good job cleaning up things, winning the aerial battles, even getting involved a little bit in the attacking end on set pieces. I also think another name is obviously going to be Canardo Forbes. When he's found some space down that right side for Rochester, he's been dangerous.
Samuels with the cross. Schmoll puts it out for a corner kick. Rochester starting to find some of those second balls now here late in the second half and get some opportunities. Your man Canardo Forbes will take this corner kick on that far right side. Farrell, Tosh, and Apostolopoulos coming up the field. Sean Tosh scored in extra time, in stoppage time, to beat New York at the close of last year's regular season. Can he do it to them again? Forbes puts in the cross. Headed back by Apostolopoulos and over the top and out of bounds. The next New York Red Bulls 2 home match is Sunday, May 1st, as the Charlotte Independents come to Red Bull Arena at 4 p.m. For tickets and more information, log on to NewYorkRedBulls.com or call 1-877-727-6223 today.
And a pretty good opponent coming into here in Red Bull Arena next Sunday as well, Orlando City. Boy, that's going to be a bloodbath of a game, isn't it? Two teams fighting, really needing the points.
Primetime game there, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. One on Fox Sports 1.
I'll be there. You'll probably be eating in some trendy restaurant in Brooklyn, but I'll be there.
I will be. That's exactly true. Actually, I won't be eating out at all. It'll be Passover holiday.
Well,
So
happy
we're
Passover
eating it.
to you.
Thank you. But not yet, as we still have time left in this one for one of these teams to try and find a winner. Ball over the top. Samuels is onside. He's able to keep it inbounds. Trying to cut back on the defender and then puts it out. New York Red Bulls 2 coming into this one at 2-0-1. 2-2 draw here against TFC 2 in the opening game. A 2-0 victory over Louisville City in Louisville in their second match, and then a 4-0 victory over Bethlehem Steel FC. Rhinos had the first week off. They headed to Pittsburgh and got a 1-0 win on Christian Valesky's goal in week 2, and then fell at City Stadium down in Richmond last week 1-0. Layoff attempt there from Simpara. And it goes out of bounds in favor of New York Red Bulls 2. Canardo Forbes telling Ryan James he wants that ball out in front of him to let him run onto it. Kevin O'Toole making his professional soccer debut here at Montclair, New Jersey. O'Toole committed to head to Princeton in the fall. Free kick will go in favor of Rochester, and this a huge opportunity here with just minutes left. A little bit of a mistake from New York to give up the foul, and now Rochester a chance maybe at a winning goal.
Yeah, not only a clumsy challenge, but an unnecessary one. You have a player who's kind of pinned in there to the corner. I'm not sure what Dan Metzger was necessarily thinking, but now Red Bull is going to have to defend a pretty tall task, literally, with the bodies that Rochester's throwing forward.
6-2 after 6-2 in the box. Cross comes into the far post, and it goes out of bounds, and no one gets contact with it. And once again, we see a set-piece opportunity wasted by this Rochester Rhinos team.
And this is the bread and butter of Rochester so much throughout the 2015 season, being able to get goals on set pieces, being tight defensively. So far, the second part's been true this game, but they haven't been able to find the back of the net.
Bob Lilly just going to sit down, not happy on the sideline. They're so good normally at getting Asani Samuels across the face of the goalkeeper and making it tough for the keeper to come out and challenge for the ball. Flemings gets by the first defender, trying to cut in field, but it's cleared emphatically by Samuel over the top of our cameraman at midfield. New York Red Bull 2 trying to make it 3 straight wins with a late goal in this one. Foul will go against Flemings. Samuel still down behind the play. Junior Flemings out of Tivoli Gardens in Jamaica. Scored quite a few goals in his time down in Jamaica. You mentioned all of the Jamaican national team experience he has. Getting his first full 90 minutes here this afternoon. What have you thought of his performance?
Well, he flowed in and out of the games a little bit, and you can see the technical ability. He certainly has daring in the final third, but you want to be able to see defensively where's the work rate. I thought at times he kind of sat out some of those plays. I think he has a willingness to improve, which is certainly half the battle. He has the technical ability as well. I thought there was more good than bad from Junior Flemings in this game. I think you can say that about most of the Red Bulls players, though.
A lot of offensive responsibility on his shoulders now. With Mule not with the team, Anatola Bong and Sean Davis not with this squad. As we enter stoppage time, a minimum of 3 minutes will be added by Jaime Herrera. 70 degrees and sunny, not a cloud in the sky, a perfect afternoon here at Red Bull Arena.
And a good performance, I think, from Jaime Herrera. I mean, in recent weeks we've been talking a lot about referee performances, throughout, but I think he's certainly done a good job.
And now 2 New York players are down holding their face. Mason Deeds, and then when everyone came to deal with it, Czech Umbaye went down to the ground. Dos Santos was the one with the initial contact with Deeds, and then it looked like the second contact, and we'll see if anything's called. He's talking to the 4th official right now.
And Dos Santos.
And a red card was issued, so Steven Dos Santos is off here in stoppage time.
And Dos Santos trying to make his case still, even as he heads into the locker room, that it was just a light push, but you can't be doing that at this level.
He was given a red card in the Eastern Conference Finals, was suspended for 3 games. This is his first game back, and he picks up a red card, straight red card once again here in stoppage time. Steven Dos Santos, not his finest moment here. So he picks up the red card to leave his team a man down for what won't be very long, but now all of this time will have to be added to stoppage time, as we are now 2 minutes into stoppage time. But all of this occurred. Can New York take advantage? They get an opportunity here. You have to think it'll be tough for Rochester now. Even more of a disadvantage here on the road. Fleming's out wide. He loses possession. O'Toole back to Schmoll. Just about a minute and a half left to play. New York Red Bulls 2 looking for a winner. Flemings comes back, floats the cross in. Allen looks for the overhead kick. It gets knocked down and rolls wide of the post. And it'll be a corner kick here for New York.
And certainly ostentatious there from Brandon Allen. A little dangerous perhaps, but certainly ostentatious. And Brandon Allen, who's had difficulty finding himself in the flow of this game. The cross coming in down that left flank from, I believe, Derek Etienne, very nearly providing a memorable game winner.
Etienne now to take the corner kick, maybe the last chance of the game, and it's straight into the hands of Gomez. Brandon Allen showing you there a little bit how his mind thinks, or his mind works. Not thinking twice about going up for that scissor kick. It would have been an incredible game winner. Would have been Clint Mathis-esque.
Or Pele in victory.
Or Pele in victory. And that is it. Jaime Herrera blows the whistle. John Wolnick looks back at the fourth officials. He can't believe it.
Well, no victoire here for either team.
So they share the spoils 0-0, just as it was last year. Rafi Diaz comes off the bench in the first half for Ryan Mira, makes a big save at the feet of Steven Dos Santos. Stefano Bonomo hits the post. Brandon Allen, a good opportunity that he puts in the side of the net in the first half as well. A few good looks for Conardo Forbes in the second half. A look for Derek Etienne. So chances both sides. But New York Red Bulls 2 remain undefeated, although they cannot get the winner. Let's look at the highlights from this one here, and we'll start out with that look for Steven Dos Santos of the Rochester Rhinos.
Yeah, and a lot of space there on the left flank, putting a ball across, and Dos Santos very nearly starting things off the right way in the 25th minute. But this was what Rochester did a couple times in the first half and a little bit more effectively to start the second half, finding room behind the fullbacks, playing it wide. And then Brandon Allen, who I thought had a very active first half, he had an original opportunity into the side of the net, playing this ball down the left channel to Stefano Bonomo, going towards the back post, very nearly 1-0 for the Red Bulls.
New York continued to put the pressure on into the second half. Derek Etienne scored his first goal of the season last week. This was his best look of the game, Christian, and Thomas Gomez getting a fingertip to it and keeping it out.
And a nice amount of work there from Devin Speedy Williams to set things up. And Etienne very nearly here as well. Gomez just pushing it across with his left hand, getting his body across. But I thought Etienne had a very good performance, a more complete performance than we saw about a month ago, in terms of his defensive work rate, in terms of those responsibilities. And Rochester, I think much to their credit, had some opportunities. Forbes in the second half was very active here, finding some room down that right flank consistently. Forbes, to me, was probably the standout player for Rochester in this match.
For New York, they head on the road to Wilmington in their next match and then return here on May 1st against Charlotte Independence. Rochester will have their home opener next week against FC Montreal as Rafi Diaz. A big performance from him and more maybe needed from him with Ryan Mira going out with that injury. Well, for Christian Dyer, David Goss, Mike Demmel, and everyone here in our production, we thank you so much for watching. Stick to NewYorkRedBulls.com for all of your USL news.
This copyrighted telecast of the United Soccer League may not be retransmitted, rebroadcast, or reproduced without the express written consent from the United Soccer League.